What if a capital was set ablaze by the very people defending it? Imagine a moment when the very heart of an empire, its capital, is not just threatened, but consumed by fire, not by an invading army, but by its own people, on its own command. A desperate act of self-immolation, performed to deny a conqueror even the ashes of victory. This wasn't a minor outpost, but the ancient seat of power, reduced to a smoldering ruin. And it wasn't an isolated incident. Throughout its history, Russia has faced existential threats that forced its leaders into unthinkable decisions, moments where the entire fabric of the nation seemed poised to unravel. We'll explore 5 such pivotal collapses, each revealing a desperate gamble, a moment of strategic failure, or a near annihilation. But none of them quite match the sheer, self-inflicted devastation of that burning capital. Entry 5, the Decembrist Uprising. Number 5 on our list of Russia's grand strategic collapses takes us to the heart of its imperial power, St. Petersburg, December 1825. A new emperor, Nicholas I, had just ascended the throne, following the unexpected death of his brother, Alexander I. This moment of succession was seen by a clandestine group of young, educated noble officers, many of them veterans who had witnessed liberal ideals in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars, as their chance. They called themselves the Decembrists, named for the month of their fateful action. For years, these officers had met in secret societies, debating the future of Russia, dreaming of a constitutional monarchy, the abolition of serfdom, and civil liberties. Figures like Pavel Pestel and Sergei Muravyov-Apostel were driven by a profound sense of duty and a desire to see their country shed its autocratic chains. Their plan, audacious in its scope, was to prevent the Senate and the Guards regiments from swearing allegiance to Nicholas I. They aimed to rally troops on Senate Square, demanding a constitution. On December 26, 1825, a cold winter morning, approximately 3,000 soldiers, mainly from the Moscow Life Guards Regiment, marched onto Senate Square, refusing to pledge loyalty to the new Tsar. They formed a defensive square, awaiting their leaders and the support they believed would materialize. However, the meticulously planned coup began to unravel almost immediately. Prince Sergei Trubetskoy, the appointed dictator of the uprising, failed to appear. Other key leaders were either arrested or hesitated, leaving the rebel troops leaderless and exposed. For hours, the standoff continued, with the rebels surrounded by loyalist forces. Tsar Nicholas I, initially hesitant, eventually ordered a brutal suppression. This brutal suppression solidified Nicholas I's autocratic rule and sent a clear, chilling message: internal dissent would be met with absolute force. This internal collapse, a strategic miscalculation by the very elites who sought to reform the empire, set a precedent for state suppression that would echo for centuries. But the challenges to the empire only grew, leading to a far more devastating confrontation on Russia's own soil, a collapse not from within, but by external powers. Entry 4, the Siege of Sevastopol. Number 4 on our list is the Siege of Sevastopol, a crucible of the Crimean War that starkly revealed Russia's vulnerabilities to external powers. After decades of expansionist policies, particularly into Ottoman territories, Russia found itself at war in October 1853 with the Ottoman Empire, soon joined by Britain, France, and Sardinia. This formidable coalition aimed to curb Russian influence, especially its access to the Mediterranean through the Black Sea. The strategic heart of this conflict became Sevastopol, Russia's primary naval base in the Black Sea, located on the Crimean Peninsula. From September 1854 to September 1855, Sevastopol endured one of the most prolonged and brutal sieges in history. The Allied forces landed on the peninsula, isolating Crimea and beginning a relentless assault on the city's formidable defenses. For Russia, the defense of Sevastopol became a desperate struggle against a technologically superior enemy. British and French forces, equipped with modern rifled muskets and steam-powered ships, consistently outmatched the Russian army, which still largely relied on smoothbore muskets and sailing vessels. The isolation of Crimea proved catastrophic. Russia's logistical infrastructure was primitive, unable to adequately supply its forces across vast distances. Soldiers often marched hundreds of miles to reach the front, arriving exhausted and ill-equipped. Food, medicine, and ammunition were perpetually scarce. The winter of 1854 to 1855 was particularly harsh, claiming more lives through disease, frostbite, and starvation than through combat. Cholera outbreaks ravaged both sides, but the Russian forces, already under immense strain, suffered disproportionately. The human cost was staggering. Conservative estimates place Russian casualties, dead and wounded, at over 250,000, a devastating blow to the empire's manpower. After nearly a year of relentless bombardment and fierce battles, including the iconic charges at Balaclava and Inkerman, the Allies finally captured the key Malakoff redoubt in September 1855. With its defenses breached, Sevastopol fell. The Treaty of Paris in March 1856 stripped Russia of its right to maintain a naval fleet in the Black Sea and forced it to cede territory, a profound humiliation. This defeat exposed the deep-seated corruption and technological backwardness of the Russian Empire, revealing a strategic collapse not just on the battlefield, but within the very structures of its state. The reverberations of this defeat, however, were nothing compared to the shockwaves that would soon emanate from a distant Asian theater, where Russia would again misjudge its adversary, leading to a collapse that directly catalyzed internal revolution. Entry 3, the Russo-Japanese War's humiliation. Number 3 on our list, the Russo-Japanese War's humiliation, saw Russia's strategic failures escalate dramatically, moving from internal dissent and regional military defeat to a global humiliation that directly ignited revolution at home. The Crimean War had exposed Russia's weaknesses, but the defeat by Japan in 1905 shattered the illusion of its invincibility as a major European power. Tsar Nicholas II and his advisors, blinded by imperial hubris, dismissed Japan as an inferior, non-European nation, incapable of challenging Russian ambitions in Manchuria and Korea. This profound misjudgment underpinned a series of catastrophic decisions. In October 1904, the Russian Baltic Fleet, under Admiral Rozhestvensky, embarked on an epic, 7-month voyage around Africa and across the Indian Ocean, steaming over 18,000 nautical miles to reinforce the Pacific Fleet. This odyssey was plagued by mechanical failures, coal shortages, and a complete lack of operational secrecy. The culmination of this ill-fated expedition came on May 27 to 28, 1905, in the Tsushima Strait. The Japanese combined fleet, led by Admiral Togo Heihachiro, was superior in training, tactics, and modern battleships. In a crushing 2-day engagement, the Russian fleet was virtually annihilated. Of the 38 Russian ships, 21 were sunk, 7 captured, and 6 disarmed. Only 3 ships escaped to Vladivostok, and a few more sought refuge in neutral ports. Over 5,000 Russian sailors perished. This was the first time in history that a major European power had been decisively defeated by an Asian nation, and it was the only decisive fleet action of the Age of Steel battleships. The humiliation of Tsushima, coupled with earlier land defeats, ignited widespread unrest across Russia. The war's financial strain, combined with long-standing grievances, fueled the 1905 revolution, forcing Nicholas II to issue the October Manifesto, promising civil liberties and a legislative Duma. The empire had survived, but its foundations were irrevocably shaken, revealing a global power's profound vulnerability and directly catalyzing internal revolution. Yet, even this systemic shock pales in comparison to the total societal and governmental collapse that was brewing. Entry 2. The October Revolution and Civil War. Number 2 on our list is the October Revolution and the ensuing Russian Civil War, a period where the very fabric of Russia disintegrated, tearing the country apart from within and without. The year 1917 marked the culmination of decades of simmering discontent, exacerbated by the catastrophic toll of World War I. By February, bread riots in Petrograd escalated into a full-blown revolution, forcing Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate, ending 3 centuries of Romanov rule. A provisional government, formed by liberal elements of the Duma, attempted to steer the nation towards democracy, but its authority was tenuous, and its decision to continue the war proved fatal. Throughout 1917, various factions vied for power, most notably the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, who promised peace, land, and bread. In October, a nearly bloodless coup saw the Bolsheviks seize control of key institutions in Petrograd, dissolving the provisional government. This act ignited the Russian Civil War, a brutal, ideologically driven conflict that would rage for 5 years, from 1917 to 1922. The personal stakes were immense for millions. Red Army, loyal to the Bolsheviks, fought against the White Armies, a disparate coalition of monarchists, liberals, and other anti-Bolshevik forces. Foreign intervention further complicated the conflict, with powers like Britain, France, Japan, and the United States deploying troops, primarily to support the Whites and secure their own interests. The struggle was marked by extreme violence, widespread famine, and disease. Both sides committed atrocities, and the civilian population bore the brunt of the devastation. By the war's end, millions had perished, and the Russian economy lay in ruins. The Bolshevik victory established the Soviet Union, fundamentally reshaping Russia's future and global geopolitics. This was not merely a military defeat or internal dissent, it was the complete collapse of a centuries-old imperial system, leading to a brutal, ideologically driven conflict that cost millions of lives and fundamentally reshaped the nation. Yet, even this unimaginable societal breakdown wasn't Russia's ultimate strategic gamble. Entry 1, Moscow's self-immolation. Number 1 on our list, and the ultimate strategic gamble, is the self-immolation of Moscow in September 1812. After the bloody Battle of Borodino on September 7, where both sides suffered immense casualties, Napoleon's Grande Army continued its advance towards Moscow. General Mikhail Kutuzov, commander of the Russian forces, made the agonizing decision to abandon the ancient capital without a fight. His reasoning was clear: preserving the army was paramount, even at the cost of the city. He famously stated, "With the loss of Moscow, Russia is not lost. But if the army is destroyed, Moscow and Russia are doomed." As the Russian army and most of Moscow's population evacuated, a different kind of strategy began to unfold. On September 14, 1812, Napoleon rode into a largely deserted city, expecting to find provisions and a wintering base. Instead, he found a ghost town, and within hours, fires began to erupt across Moscow. These were not accidental. Russian authorities had made preparations, removing firefighting equipment and reportedly leaving behind incendiary materials. Over the next 5 days, 3/4 of Moscow, built largely of wood, was consumed by a catastrophic inferno. The Kremlin itself was threatened. Napoleon, trapped in the burning city, was forced to evacuate to Petrovsky Palace on its outskirts. The personal stakes for Emperor Alexander I and the Russian people were immense. To willingly sacrifice their spiritual heart, their ancient capital, was an act of profound desperation and strategic genius. It denied Napoleon the supplies, shelter, and psychological victory he desperately needed. The Grande Army, already stretched thin, found itself in a ruined city with dwindling resources as winter approached. This act of self-destruction, unprecedented in its scale and audacity, left Napoleon with an untenable position. He waited over a month in the ashes of Moscow, hoping for Alexander I to negotiate, but no offer came. On October 19, Napoleon began his disastrous retreat, a decision directly forced by Moscow's fiery sacrifice. It was a collapse of conventional strategy, a moment where the very act of destruction became the ultimate defense, ultimately saving the Russian Empire. The aftermath, the consequences of Moscow's self-immolation reverberated across Europe. Napoleon's Grande Army, once numbering over 600,000 men at the start of the invasion, was decimated. Fewer than 100,000 made it out of Russia alive. The retreat through the brutal Russian winter, harried by Cossacks and partisans, became a legend of suffering and collapse. This catastrophic failure marked a turning point in the Napoleonic Wars. France's dominance on the continent was shattered. Emperor Alexander I, who had refused to negotiate despite the loss of his capital, emerged with immense prestige. His steadfastness, combined with the strategic sacrifice of Moscow and the resilience of the Russian people, was credited with breaking Napoleon's aura of invincibility. Within a year, a new coalition, emboldened by Russia's victory, would push Napoleon back across Europe. The Battle of Leipzig in October 1813 saw Napoleon defeated by Allied forces, including a significant Russian contingent. By March 1814, Allied armies entered Paris, and Napoleon abdicated, exiled to Elba. His brief return in 1815, ending at Waterloo, only cemented the profound impact of the Russian campaign. For Moscow, the cost was immense. An estimated 3/4 of the city's buildings were destroyed, including many of its iconic wooden structures. The Kremlin itself suffered damage, though it largely survived the fires. The city's population plummeted from over 270,000 before the invasion to barely 30,000 in the immediate aftermath. Yet, the rebuilding began almost immediately. Alexander I established a commission for the construction of Moscow in 1813, allocating significant funds and resources. Architects like Osip Bove and Domenico Gilardi led the reconstruction efforts, transforming much of the city center. By the 1820s, Moscow had largely recovered, adopting a more planned, classical architectural style that still defines parts of its historic core. The decision to burn Moscow, while a strategic masterstroke, remained a stark reminder of the extreme measures nations might take in existential defense. It was a collapse of conventional strategy that paradoxically secured an enduring victory, a moment where the very act of destruction became the ultimate defense, ultimately saving the Russian Empire from an almost certain defeat. It demonstrated a terrifying resolve, a willingness to sacrifice everything, even a cherished capital, to preserve national sovereignty. This grim calculus, the acceptance of immense self-inflicted pain for a greater strategic gain, would echo through Russian history, a testament to the profound and often brutal choices made in the crucible of grand strategy. Title. That was, of course, the burning of Moscow in 1812, a scorched earth tactic that ultimately crippled Napoleon's ambitions. From that fiery crucible to the later defense of Stalingrad, Russia's history is indeed marked by these moments of profound sacrifice, where the preservation of the nation demanded unthinkable costs. It's a testament to a particular strategic resilience, forged in the fires of existential threat. What other historical moments of extreme national sacrifice come to mind for you? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's turning points.